We need to review the latest evidence before we proceed. This could change everything.
As you can see by this chart, the ownership agreement is split 50-50. This matter is settled.
If you love stories about justice being served in the most dramatic way possible, like and subscribe right now. You won't believe what happened when a man tried to humiliate his ex-wife in court, only to discover she had already claimed something he never saw coming. This story will leave you speechless. The morning was clear and bright as Michael Harrison walked into the courthouse in downtown Manhattan. He was dressed in an expensive tailored suit, his hair perfectly styled, his confidence radiating from every pore. His lawyers surrounded him like soldiers preparing for battle. Michael was ready for war. Behind him, his lawyers carried boxes of documents, photographs, and financial records. They had prepared for months. They believed they had ironclad evidence. They believed they were about to destroy the reputation of the woman who had dared to leave him, to humiliate her so badly that she would have no choice but to accept whatever settlement he offered. Michael had built his company, Harrison Technologies, from the ground up, or so he told everyone. For 15 years, he had been the public face of the company. His name was on the building. His face was in every advertisement. His voice was on every company call. What Michael didn't know was that his ex-wife, Jennifer, had already made moves that would change everything. While he was busy preparing for his public humiliation of her, she was preparing to take everything he thought he owned. The doors to the courtroom were about to open. Michael Harrison was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. To understand this story, you need to understand Michael Harrison and Jennifer Morrison Harrison. They had been married for 12 years, and for most of that time they had run Harrison Technologies together. Michael was the salesman. He was charismatic, charming, and brilliant at convincing people to buy his company's products. He could walk into a room and within minutes have everyone wanting to invest in his vision. He was handsome, confident, and absolutely convinced that he was the reason the company succeeded. Jennifer was something different. She was the engineer. She was the person who actually designed the products that made Harrison Technologies successful. She was the one who solved the problems when things went wrong. She was brilliant in a way that was almost invisible to the outside world because she worked behind the scenes. When they got married, Jennifer was already working at a small tech company. Michael had just started Harrison Technologies. He asked Jennifer to join him, to use her engineering skills to help him build his dream. Jennifer agreed because she believed in the vision. She believed in Michael. For the first few years it was magical. They worked together perfectly. Michael would come up with ideas and Jennifer would figure out how to make them real. Michael would sell the products and Jennifer would make sure they actually worked. The company grew. It made money. It became successful. But as the company grew, Michael changed. He began to believe that he alone was responsible for the success. He took all the credit in interviews. He appeared on magazine covers while Jennifer worked in the lab. He accepted awards that should have been shared. He became arrogant. "You're just an engineer," he would say to Jennifer when she tried to claim credit for her work. "Anyone can be an engineer. What's special about me is that I had the vision to start the company in the first place." Jennifer didn't argue. She just worked harder. She continued to solve the problems. She continued to make the company successful. But inside she was dying. She was being erased. The person who made everything possible was being treated like a supporting actor in Michael's movie. The breaking point came when Jennifer discovered that Michael had been having an affair with his assistant. For months he had been betraying her while pretending to love her. When Jennifer confronted him, Michael's response was cold. "You're being dramatic," he said. "This doesn't mean anything. Besides, you wouldn't understand. You're always working. You don't have time to appreciate a real relationship." Jennifer filed for divorce the next day. Now, in the months leading up to the divorce proceedings, Michael had become increasingly cruel. He spoke badly about Jennifer to anyone who would listen. He claimed she was incompetent. He claimed that her work was overrated. He claimed that the company would be better off without her. He was determined to not just end the marriage, but to destroy her reputation. Jennifer, meanwhile, had been quietly strategic. She had hired the best divorce lawyer in New York, A woman named Margaret Chun who was famous for winning impossible cases. Margaret had told Jennifer something important during their first meeting. "We're not going to fight him in the press. We're going to fight him in the law. And we're going to win so completely that he won't know what hit him." "What do you mean?" Jennifer had asked. "I mean," Margaret said with a slight smile, "that your ex-husband doesn't understand what he actually signed when you two started the company. And I think he's about to learn a very expensive lesson about paying attention to details." Jennifer had spent hours with Margaret going through old documents, old emails, old contracts. Margaret had discovered something that Michael had completely forgotten about. When Harrison Technologies was founded, both Jennifer and Michael had signed documents establishing the company. In those documents, they had split ownership 50-50. It was meant to be temporary, just until the company got off the ground. But Michael had never changed the paperwork. He had just assumed that because he was the public face of the company, he owned it completely. He was wrong. Jennifer actually owned half of Harrison Technologies. Half of everything. Half of the value, which was now worth over $200 million. Margaret had smiled when she realized this. "He has no idea," she had said. "And we're going to let him walk into that courtroom completely confident, completely arrogant, and completely unprepared for what's about to happen." The courtroom was packed. Michael had invited media representatives because he wanted this to be very public. He wanted everyone to know that he was the wronged party, that his wife had abandoned him, that she was trying to take advantage of him. He wanted her humiliated. His lawyer, a man named Richard Thornton, was equally aggressive. He had prepared a presentation that would make Jennifer look bad. He had documents showing that Michael was the primary decision-maker at the company. He had emails where Jennifer seemed to defer to Michael. He had carefully selected evidence that painted a narrative of Michael as the visionary and Jennifer as just an employee. When the judge entered, Michael sat up straight, confident. This was his moment. This was when he would finally be vindicated. Michael's lawyer stood up and began his opening statement. He spoke eloquently about Michael's vision, his leadership, his dedication to building the company. He spoke about how Jennifer had contributed, but only in a supporting role. He painted a picture of a brilliant entrepreneur whose marriage had failed because his wife couldn't support his dreams. "Your Honor," Thornton said dramatically, "my client has been betrayed by a woman who never contributed meaningfully to the success of this company. She was an engineer, nothing more. Any engineer could have done what she did. But my client, Your Honor, my client had the vision, the courage, and the determination to build Harrison Technologies into the powerhouse it is today." The media in the courtroom was eating it up. Reporters were already writing headlines in their heads. "Tech entrepreneur reveals wife's minor role in company success." This was exactly what Michael wanted. Then Jennifer's lawyer, Margaret Chun, stood up. She was calm, collected, and absolutely deadly. "Your Honor," Margaret began, "the opposing counsel has presented a very compelling narrative. Unfortunately, it's completely false. And I'm about to prove it using the defendant's own documents." She walked to a large screen and displayed the founding documents of Harrison Technologies. Clear as day, right there for everyone to see, was the signature of both Michael and Jennifer on a document that established them as equal 50-50 partners in the company. Michael's face went white. "Your Honor," Margaret continued, "when Harrison Technologies was founded, both parties agreed to split ownership equally. This was done with the full knowledge and consent of my client's ex-husband. For 15 years, my client has remained a 50-50 owner of Harrison Technologies, even as the ex-husband took credit for all of her work, even as he publicly diminished her contributions, even as he committed adultery and broke his marriage vows." She turned to face Michael directly. "What we have here is not a story of a supportive spouse failing to understand her husband's vision. What we have here is a story of a man who forgot, or more likely deliberately ignored, the fact that his company belongs equally to the woman he's trying to humiliate." The courtroom erupted. Reporters were on their phones immediately. The narrative had completely flipped. This wasn't a story about a wronged entrepreneur anymore. This was a story about a man who had tried to take everything and didn't even realize his wife already owned half of it. Michael's lawyer, Richard Thornton, stood up in shock. He had prepared for this case for months, and suddenly everything had changed. The evidence he had so carefully arranged was now meaningless. Your Honor, he said, his voice shaking, we need time to review these documents. There must be some error. My client would never have. Never have what? Margaret interrupted. Never have forgotten that he signed them? Or never have bothered to change them because he assumed his wife would just accept whatever he decided? She turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I have copies of emails between my client and her ex-husband where she asked multiple times over the years to update the ownership structure. In each case, my client's ex-husband refused. He wanted to maintain ambiguity so that he could claim full ownership to outside investors, while actually sharing ownership with my client. She displayed the emails on the screen. There they were, clear as day. Jennifer asking for clarification. Michael refusing. Michael literally writing, "Why do we need to change anything? You already know how it works." The judge, a woman named Patricia Morrison, was studying the documents carefully. She had been a judge for 25 years, and she had seen many people come into her courtroom convinced they could manipulate the law. But she rarely saw someone as arrogant as Michael Harrison. Mr. Harrison, the judge said, looking at him directly, it appears that you are the owner of 50% of your company, not 100%. Is that correct? Michael's lawyers were whispering frantically, trying to figure out how to respond. But there was no good response. The documents were clear. Your Honor, Michael said, trying to salvage something, my ex-wife contributed very little to the success of. That's not relevant, the judge said coldly. Ownership is ownership. The documents are clear. You both own this company equally. Now let's talk about what that means for this divorce settlement. Margaretchen smiled slightly. She had been waiting for this moment for months. What happened in the next hour was the complete destruction of Michael Harrison's position. Margaret presented evidence showing that Harrison Technologies was worth $230 million. That meant Jennifer's half was worth $115 million. But it also meant something more important. Jennifer had the power to force Michael to either buy her out for that amount, or sell the company completely and split the proceeds. Michael didn't have $115 million in liquid assets, and he certainly wasn't willing to sell his company. Margaret also presented evidence of Michael's infidelity, his public humiliation of Jennifer, and his deliberate attempt to erase her contributions from the company's history. The judge was clearly unimpressed with Michael's behavior. Mr. Harrison, the judge said, you come into my courtroom and attempt to humiliate your ex-wife, only to discover that she is not just an equal partner in your company, but that she has been systematically erased from its history despite being the primary engineer behind every successful product. Is that an accurate summary? Michael didn't answer. Additionally, the judge continued, your ex-wife tried multiple times to clarify the ownership structure, and you refused. You deliberately maintained ambiguity so that you could make false claims about ownership. That's not just dishonest, Mr. Harrison. That's potentially fraudulent. The judge turned to Jennifer. Ms. Morrison, you are entitled to 50% of the value of Harrison Technologies, which I calculate to be $115 million. You can either receive that as a buyout from your ex-husband, or you can insist on a sale of the company. Additionally, you are entitled to damages for the public defamation of your character and the deliberate erasure of your contributions from company history. Margaret stood and said, Your Honor, my client would like to retain her 50% ownership of Harrison Technologies. She's not interested in selling. She believes that the company is stronger with her involvement, and she intends to take a more active role in its management and public representation going forward. The entire courtroom seemed to gasp. Michael turned pale. The implications were catastrophic. Jennifer didn't just own half the company now, she was going to be actively involved in managing it. She would have a seat on the board. She would have a voice in all major decisions. She would finally get the credit she deserved, and Michael would have to share power with her. The judge looked at Michael. This means, Mr. Harrison, that you can no longer make unilateral decisions about your company. Every major decision will require agreement from your ex-wife. Do you understand? Michael nodded slowly, the reality crashing down on him. He had walked into this courtroom thinking he would humiliate his ex-wife. Instead, he had handed her half his company on a silver platter. As the courtroom was dismissed, the media immediately swarmed Jennifer. For the first time in her career, she was the story. The headlines that had been prepared in Michael's favor were completely rewritten. Tech engineer reveals she owns $500 million company. One headline read, "Ex-wife of tech CEO wins stunning victory in court." Another proclaimed, "Michael Harrison loses company control to ex-wife in shocking turn of events." A third declared. Within hours, the story had spread around the world. Technology companies that had been thinking about partnering with Michael Harrison suddenly wanted to talk to Jennifer instead. She was the engineer. She was the one who designed the products. She was the one the industry respected. In the weeks following the trial, several things happened that changed the landscape of Harrison Technologies forever. First, Jennifer hired a new management team, people who respected her contributions and who understood the technical side of the business as well as she did. Michael found himself increasingly sidelined. His grand titles didn't matter anymore. He had one vote just like Jennifer had one vote, and on every important decision he was outvoted. Second, Jennifer began to tell the real story of Harrison Technologies. She gave interviews explaining how each product had been designed, what problems they solved, how her engineering innovations had made the company successful. The tech world, which had always respected her technical knowledge, finally got to hear from her directly. Third, the company's stock price actually went up. Investors were thrilled to learn that the company had such a brilliant engineer at the helm. The idea that Jennifer was the co-founder and equal partner, not just a supporting player, made the company more attractive, not less. Michael tried to fight back. He went on television and claimed that Jennifer was using her legal victory to take credit for his work. But it didn't matter. The documents spoke for themselves. The emails were public. The judge's ruling was on record. Everyone could see that Michael had deliberately tried to erase Jennifer from history, and now he was paying the price. Within 6 months, Michael had hired a lawyer to negotiate a buyout. He couldn't stand being in a position of shared power with Jennifer. He offered her $115 million to buy his share. Jennifer accepted. Michael Harrison left Harrison Technologies a much poorer man than when he entered that courtroom. But more importantly, he left with a lesson about hubris, about the importance of proper documentation, and about the danger of underestimating the people who actually do the work. Jennifer Morrison became the sole owner and CEO of Harrison Technologies. The company continued to grow. The products continued to innovate. The company continued to succeed. But now everyone knew who the real genius was. Everyone knew that Jennifer was the brain behind the technology. What was particularly poetic about the outcome was that Michael's attempt to humiliate Jennifer in court had actually made her famous. By trying to diminish her role, he had forced her to step into the spotlight. By trying to control the narrative, he had inadvertently exposed his own lies. The lesson of this story extends far beyond just Michael and Jennifer. It's a story about the importance of recognizing and crediting the people who do the actual work. It's a story about how success is built by teams, not by individuals. It's a story about the danger of arrogance and assumption. It's also a story about documentation. Michael's downfall came not from dramatic courtroom arguments, but from pieces of paper he had signed years ago and forgotten about. In business, in relationships, and in life, what you sign matters. What you write down matters. What you agree to matters. If Michael had updated the ownership documents when Jennifer first asked, if he had been honest about her role in the company, if he had given her the credit she deserved, this entire situation could have been avoided. Instead, his attempt to erase her from history led to his own erasure from power. Jennifer, for her part, learned an important lesson too. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to humiliate you is not to fight them directly, but to let them expose themselves. By allowing Michael to make his claims in court, Jennifer had made him look foolish. By presenting the documents, she had made the truth impossible to deny. Years later, when asked about the trial, Jennifer would say, "I wasn't trying to take anything from Michael. I was trying to get what was always mine. The company belonged to both of us. I just had to remind him of that fact." Michael, living much more quietly after leaving the company, would occasionally be asked about the trial. His response was always the same. "I made mistakes. I should have been more careful with documentation. I should have been more fair to Jennifer. And I should have never assumed that I could control the narrative." The story of Michael and Jennifer became a cautionary tale in the tech industry. Young entrepreneurs were taught to document ownership carefully. They were taught to give credit where credit was due. They were taught that the person with the vision is important, but the person who makes the vision real is equally important. And perhaps most importantly, they were taught that you should never go to court planning to humiliate someone without knowing exactly what they have in their hand, because the person you're trying to destroy might have more power than you think. Call to action. If this incredible story about justice, karma, and the power of documentation absolutely captivated you, like and subscribe right now. Don't miss more amazing stories about people getting their comeuppance and finding their power. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone's arrogance catch up with them? Have you been in a situation where documentation saved you? Tell us your story. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next dramatic story. If you know someone who needs to hear this lesson about giving credit where it's due and documenting important agreements, share this video with them. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Jennifer's position? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we bring you more stories of justice and second chances. ****